Welcome, night owls. This is Midnight FM, your companion when silence feels heavier than company. Tonight, I'm not joined by a guest. Tonight, it's just you and me, and a story. You may think you already know. A story whispered in suburbs across America, passed around campfires, locker rooms, and sleepovers. It begins like an urban legend, just another tale to scare the gullible. But as the years went on, as the news reports piled up, people started asking the same question. Was it ever just a story? The tale is simple. A babysitter, a quiet house, children asleep upstairs, and then the phone rings. At first, silence. Then the voice. Have you checked the children? We've all heard it, but tonight I'll tell it to you the way I first heard it, and the way it was told in the small town where it happened. It was late on a Friday night. The Andersons had hired Carol, a high school junior, to watch their two children. The house was a tall, creaking place built before the war. Every step on the wooden floor carried through the walls, and the pipes groaned whenever water moved through them. Carol didn't mind. She'd been babysitting since she was 12. The kids were easy, already tucked into bed with their nightlight glowing. She just had to sit downstairs, do her homework, and keep the house from burning down. Easy money. Or so she thought. The night was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. Outside, the street was dark. The Andersons lived at the edge of town, where the houses thinned out into long stretches of fields and woods. The nearest neighbor was nearly a quarter-mile away. Carol sat at the kitchen table, flipping through a magazine. The only sounds were the steady tick of the wall clock and the hum of the refrigerator. Then the phone rang. She jumped. It wasn't unusual. Parents checking in, maybe. She picked it up. Hello? Silence. Not the kind of silence where the line is dead. No, this was heavier. As if someone on the other end, listening. Hello? She tried again. Still nothing. Uneasy, she hung up. Minutes later, the phone rang again. She answered quickly this time, trying to sound confident. Hello? And then it came. A low voice, whispering, Have you checked the children? Carol froze, her mouth dry. She opened her lips to respond, but the line went dead. She told herself it was a prank, maybe one of her classmates. Somebody knew she was babysitting, wanted to scare her. She went back to her magazine, but she couldn't focus. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Every creak of the old house seemed louder now. The shadows stretched deeper across the floor. And then the phone rang again. Her hand shook as she picked it up. She didn't say a word this time, just listened. The same voice, whispering, slow. Have you checked the children? The line went dead again.
Carol's heart hammered. She thought of the kids upstairs, sleeping peacefully, their small breaths rising and falling in the dark. What if something was wrong? What if this wasn't just a prank? She forced herself to her feet, every board creaking under her weight as she crossed the living room. The stairway loomed before her, dark and narrow. She placed her foot on the first step. It groaned like a warning. She hesitated, then turned back. She couldn't do it. Not yet. Instead, she reached for the phone and dialed the operator. Back then, you could still call for help directly. When the woman's voice came on the line, Carol's words tumbled out fast. "There's someone calling me. I think it's a prank, but it's scaring me." The operator's voice was calm, measured. "Stay on the line, honey. We'll trace it. Next time he calls, keep him talking." Carol nodded, clutching the phone to her ear as if it might protect her.
The kitchen clock ticked on. 10 minutes passed, then 15. She almost let herself believe it was over. Then the phone rang. Her hand shook as she lifted the receiver. The whisper came again. "Have you checked the children?" Her throat closed, but she forced the words out. "Why are you doing this? What do you want?" The voice chuckled, low and breathy, sending chills down her spine. "They're not asleep." Click. The line went dead. Carol dropped the receiver, her whole body trembling. The operator's voice crackled back through. "Stay calm, honey. We got the trace. The call is coming from..." And then silence. A long, terrible silence. Finally, the operator's voice returned, urgent, shaken. "Carol, get out of the house. The call is coming from inside the house." The operator's words echoed in her skull. "The call is coming from inside the house." Her hand went numb, the phone slipping from her fingers and swinging by its cord. The dial tone buzzed hollow in the background, but she didn't hear it. Every creak of the floor above her seemed louder now. Every shadow stretched longer. Someone was upstairs. Carol stumbled back from the phone, her breath coming fast. Her first thought was the children. She turned toward the staircase, staring into that dark, narrow passage that led to their rooms. At the top, the landing yawned like a mouth waiting to swallow her. Her heart screamed, "Go! Run out the front door! Leave now!" But the kids, she couldn't leave them. She forced her legs to move, one trembling step after another. The stairs groaned under her weight, each board crying out like it didn't want her to go any higher. At the top, the hallway stretched out long and dark. The children's room was at the far end, the nightlight glowing faintly under the crack of the door. The glow should have comforted her, but instead it made her stomach twist, because the light flickered, as if something had passed in front of it. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Hello? Is someone there?" No answer. Only the hum of silence, broken by the faint tick of a clock somewhere in the house. She moved down the hall, her feet dragging across the rug. Every step closer made the air heavier, pressing against her chest. Finally, she reached the children's door. Her hand shook as she gripped the knob. Slowly, she pushed it open.
The nightlight glowed soft in the corner. The two children lay in their beds, small chests rising and falling, peaceful, still. For a moment, relief crashed over her. They were fine. They were safe. She stepped inside, closing the door gently behind her. The quiet was so thick she could hear her own breath. Then, the closet door creaked. To scoop the kids up and flee, but fear glued her in place. The closet door creaked again, opening wider. Shadows pooled out onto the floor. And then she saw it. A shape, tall, hunched, filling the frame, eyes glinting faintly in the nightlight's glow. A man. He stepped out slow, each movement unnatural, deliberate. His head tilted at an odd angle, his breath rasping loud in the silence. His hands were too long, fingers curling and uncurling like claws. Carol stumbled back, her hand flying to the children's bed. The little boy stirred, blinking in confusion. The man's head snapped toward him. That was all it took. Carol screamed, loud and desperate, the kind of scream that rips from your lungs when you know you're about to die. Downstairs, the front door burst open. Boots pounded the floor. Voices shouted. The police had traced the call, and they weren't far. The man froze, his eyes burning into Carol's as if memorizing her face. Then he turned, swift, silent, and bolted for the window. Glass shattered, night air rushing in, curtains whipping like wings. By the time the officers reached the room, he was gone. The children cried, clinging to Carol as she shook uncontrollably. Her voice was gone, strangled by terror. The officers swept the room, the hall, the yard. No trace of him. No footprints in the dew. No blood on the glass, as if he'd never been there at all. But Carol knew. She'd seen him. She'd smelled the sour rot of his breath, felt the weight of his eyes. He was real. The police stayed until morning, searching the property, assuring her the danger had passed. But Carol didn't sleep, couldn't. Every creak of the house was him. Every shadow was his figure, crouching, waiting. And when the Andersons returned, she quit babysitting for good. But even years later, she'd wake at night to the phantom sound of a phone ringing in the dark, and a voice, low and mocking, whispering the words that never left her. "Have you checked the children?" That's how the story is told in that town, a whisper of the urban legend we all know. But what makes it worse is that it happened again. Different names, different towns, always the same story. A babysitter, a phone call, a man already inside the house. Urban legends are funny things, aren't they? They start as whispers, tales told to scare children into behaving. But sometimes they grow teeth. Sometimes they bleed into the real world. And the babysitter's call, it bled more than once.
The earliest record I could find was from 1950 in a small Midwestern town. A teenage sitter, much like Carol, reported strange calls through the night. She ignored the first few, thinking it was a prank. But when the voice finally spoke, it said the same words. "Have you checked the children?" The girl hung up, terrified. But when the parents returned home, the police found the children's room empty. The window open. Cold night air drifting in. The children were never seen again. 2 decades later, in the early 70s, the legend resurfaced. This time, a sitter in a suburban Illinois neighborhood called the police after repeated disturbing calls. When they traced the line, the dispatcher gave the same warning: "Get out of the house." And once again, when officers arrived, they found the intruder had fled. The children, this time, were safe, still asleep in their beds. But the sitter swore she'd seen him, a man in the shadows of the hallway, watching her. Newspapers across the country picked up the story. Soon, every teenager had heard it, every babysitter. Parents whispered it before leaving for the night, half joking, half afraid. It became more than an urban legend. It became a warning. But legends don't stay buried. They grow. They adapt. By the 1980s, the calls weren't just landlines. Reports came in of sitters receiving whispers through baby monitors. Static crackling in the night, then a voice saying, "I can see you." In one chilling case, a mother in Ohio swore she heard a man humming through the monitor while her children slept. When she burst into the room, the kids were fine, but the closet door was open, and inside, footprints in the dust led to the window. The legend shifted again in the 2000s. Cell phones had replaced rotary dials, but the whispers didn't stop. A young sitter in California reported repeated texts from an unknown number. At first, they were nonsense, random letters, scrambled words. Then came the message that froze her blood. "Don't bother checking them. I already have." She ran to the children's room, heart pounding, but they were gone. The window open, curtains swaying in the night air. The case was never solved. Skeptics say these are just coincidences, different crimes stitched together by fear, retold until they became one story. But fear has a way of preserving the truth. And when you strip away the rumors, the patterns remain. Always the same. A sitter, children upstairs, a voice on the line, already inside the house. Carol's story is told most often because she survived. She lived to tell it. But for every Carol, there are dozens of nameless sitters and families whose stories end without answers. In police archives, I found notes, yellowed, fading, written by hand. Cases marked unresolved. Always involving a babysitter. Always involving children. Always ending in disappearance. Some files even noted what the callers said. The same words written over and over. Have you checked the children? I want to believe it's just a legend. I want to believe it's the kind of story we tell each other late at night to feel the thrill of being afraid. But the evidence doesn't go away. And the whispers, they don't stop. Because even now, there are reports. Sitters in quiet neighborhoods. Parents gone for the night. The phone rings, or the monitor hums, or a text buzzes at midnight, and the voice says the same words it always has. Have you checked the children? You can laugh it off if you like. Say it's superstition. Say it's nothing more than the echo of a scary story. But next time you leave your kids with a sitter, or next time you're alone at night watching over someone else's, remember this. Legends are born from truth, and sometimes truth doesn't die. If you're listening tonight and you've ever been a babysitter, you already know how long the night can feel, how loud the silence becomes when the house settles, when the shadows stretch, when the phone sits too close at hand. And maybe, just maybe, you've heard the ring. Felt that cold dread rising as you picked up the receiver. And maybe, even if you don't want to admit it, you've already heard the whisper. Urban legends don't die. They wait. They adapt. And the babysitter's call? It hasn't gone away. In the last 10 years, new reports have surfaced. Not on landlines, not through old rotary phones, but on devices in nearly every home. Smartphones, baby monitors, even smart speakers sitting innocently on a nightstand. A sitter in Texas said she was reading in the living room when her phone lit up with a video call from the children's bedroom upstairs. The problem? There was no camera in that room. She answered anyway, curiosity stronger than fear. And for 3 long seconds, she saw a man standing at the foot of the children's bed, tall, still, watching. The screen went black. In another case, a mother in Oregon received alerts from her Wi-Fi baby monitor. Motion detected, sound detected. She opened the feed and saw nothing but the kids sleeping soundly. Until the audio crackled and a man's voice whispered through the speaker, "You don't have to check them. I already have." When she rushed into the room, her children were fine, but the closet door stood open, and the smell of sweat and rot lingered in the air. So maybe the story of the babysitter's call isn't stuck in the past. Maybe it just changed its number. And that's the worst part about legends. They don't care about technology. They don't care about locks. They only care about finding new ways in. Now, I want you to imagine this. It's late. You're alone. The children are asleep upstairs. The house is quiet. Too quiet.
Your phone buzzes. You glance at the screen. It's a number you don't recognize. You answer, because that's what we do. At first, silence. Then a low voice. Have you checked the children? What do? Do you laugh it off? Tell yourself it's a prank? Or do you run upstairs, praying to God you're not too late? Because the line has already been traced, and the call is always closer than you think. Carol's story, the police files, the newspaper clippings, their warnings, reminders that even the safest place, a warm house in a quiet neighborhood, can hide something waiting in the dark. And maybe tonight, while you listen to me, someone else is listening to you. So if your phone rings in the dark and the voice whispers those words, don't wait, don't hesitate, don't even look upstairs. Run. This has been the Babysitter's Call, told here on Midnight FM. I'm your host, R.J. Jacob, and I'll be here with you through the long night, keeping the silence from pressing too close. Until next time, night owls, keep your doors locked and your phones close, because you never know who might be on the other end.